Okay, here's a close-up of these connectors. This is the one off of the van windshield wiper motor. And this is the one that's the same as the coil log. Couple other things. This is the connector that I used. I spliced both ends together. Made my extension cord. Put my pins around for my 6-pack coil. This is the same connector that I used for my knock centers. This here is either the speed control servo pump motor or the original coil connector that I cut off the van when I got the coil. If you look down in here, find something to point with. You see right here, this is curved. And this is curved. On the windshield wiper motor plug, it's different. There's a good view right there. It's got this notch. And then this side's curved. And they're pretty much the same connector, but they keyed it so it's kind of retard proof, and they made it two different colors. There's a good look. Now, these wires for the coil or that speed controller, and the coil connector is the same. These are really thin wires, janky. These wires here, on the other hand, were meant to carry some power. All but the exception to this one. If you grab several of these connectors, I can show you how to tear these apart. This same deal. You pry down in here on these corners. Pop that out. This blue piece pops out of there. Comes forward. You reach up in here. Down in this groove. You take out that red seal. And they pull up on them little corners there, and it'll spit this blue thing out. And then what's really going to help you is get online and look for a Chinesium connector depinning kit. It's going to look like a ring of keys with a bunch of little flat squares and hollow pieces, and it's designed to take these apart, and it'll be your best friend. And it'll also be your worst enemy, because you'll end up sticking one of them through the end of your thumb. And when you try to use it, you'll see what I mean. But to get these two compatible, you've got the other end. This won't fit in here because of this guy. It don't have the notch. One of the other connectors, I think the coil, this might not be a coil connector, but this little gidgey here was that fishtail that I was talking about. If you cut that off, it'll connect into the connector that don't have this little groove. If you cut this flat square one off, this will plug directly into here. This is the only thing that's different. Is that right there. But these have got nice heavy wires. This is the wiper motor side, I believe, and this was the wiring harness side. That's why I grab these, because they're right there. They're cheap. And this is a real connector. I think you can get these online. I think you can buy a parts kit. And get, I don't know if these are Dutch connectors or... I found these online because what I was going to do before I half-assed my Jeep with the trailer wiring was I was going to get some of this PTFE silver-plated wire. Teflon coated, heat resistant. This is obviously thin gauge. I use this for winding input and output transformers on these little bug amplifiers I make right there, because it's high temp wire and it ain't going to short out and melt. I think I got a crack lighter here somewhere. At least I had a bit. Thought I had a bit. There's one right there. This wire won't burn. I mean, it'll kind of melt, and you can put a fingerprint in it, but it ain't going to burn. And that's going to turn colors. That insulation is not going to burn. It'll off gas, but it ain't going to burn. It's still on there. Now, my fingers are made out of 2x4s or wood. I'm working in the woods, but this is how I strip that wire. And underneath, it's silver. Super fine thread. Flexible. That wire ain't damaged. That's how I usually strip this wire. Well, I was originally going to get some of this heavier wire. Not much heavier, because a lot of these are signals. 5-volt signal. I was going to make a jig and get me a whole batch of these connectors, and I was going to make me a whole new harness for my Jeep. And I still might do that. But the only thing is, where the hell am I going to find a right-hand drive Jeep? I can go to the junkyard and get all the right-hand or the left-hand drive stuff, conventional Jeep, but mine's ass backwards. And to rip my harness out and put my Jeep out of commission. So that was going to be a winter project. And I was just going to go one wire at a time. Like I said, you can buy that connector kit, and you can buy all brand new terminals. But these housings, I mean, you're not squeezing this thing. And they got the clips. You get that Chinese kit, them bastards fall apart. You got to plug it in. This thing will spit out. Your wires will spit out. Just don't get them. If you need connectors, go to the junkyard and just start cutting. You could either leave them long and use them as is, or buy that pin kit. But I'll get my pocket knife out here, and I'll cut these off. I'll cut this one here off so you can plug into here. But I know one of them other ones didn't have this, and he had like 2 of these little fish tails on it. And this stuff cuts like butter. You got an actual knife that's not a play school knife. That ain't nothing to trim these down. You don't really got to do anything with this. It's just here. Get the fish tail off and that off, and you still got your locking plug and your clip. And I guess if you had a little engraver or a little die punch set, you could brand, connector A, or print labels like I did with my label printer. But we'll cut this off here. I'll modify this connector And then we'll get back into it here.